Welcome to the Journey Podcast, where we share some of the most inspiring stories on the planet, life lessons, and tools that will help you navigate through your own personal journey. I am your host, Josh Valentine. Welcome to the Journey Podcast, where we showcase some of the most incredible stories and life lessons along the way of some of the most inspiring people around the planet. I am your host, Josh Valentine, and today I have the great privilege of introducing you to my very first guest on the show. I am truly honored and humbled to bring this guest for so many different reasons. One of the reasons is because she is the person responsible for a lot of the behind the scenes work that took place to even get this podcast off the ground. I am truly, truly blessed and grateful to have her not only on my team, but also in my life. And I can tell you right now, the Journey Podcast would most certainly not have been done if it wasn't for her tirelessly working behind the scenes to really get this thing going. So without further ado, I have the honor and privilege of introducing you to the one and only, my wife, Mrs. Keia Valentine. I'm glad to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Wow, there is so much that we could obviously talk about. And just so that you guys know, we are actually tuning in from our home out here in Tampa Bay. And we're really excited to come at you home. So you might see us just kicking back, relaxing, and with our children, we have 3 boys. For those of you who don't know, we have 3 boys. They're asleep upstairs. We have also on our support team, the one and only Mr. Trey, first class, behind the camera, of course, with this beautiful production he helped us put together. And we're just so blessed to be here with you all today. We really wanted to showcase a lot of our journey together. And before we do that, I obviously want you guys to get familiar with Keia's journey and everything about her and ultimately what led up to us being together and doing life together as a married couple. And my intention for this episode, more than anything, is to maybe show some of you guys who have given up hope on the idea of marriage. Maybe you feel like marriage is dead in modern day society, and we just really want to give a lot of you guys hope that it's still alive and well. It's still possible with a little bit of work, with a little bit of sweat equity, of course. Yes, a lot of work, but we wanted to really just go in depth with the story. But before I do so, I cannot go into that story without first showcasing the Queen's story and her journey and ultimately what led up to us meeting and so on and so forth. By the way, you guys may hear me call her Hash sometimes, and Hash is short for hash brown, and it's a college joke that we have from way back in the day, but I've been calling her Hash Brown for many years. So if you hear me calling her Hash, that's why. So Hash, I would love for you to bring the audience a little bit into your journey and basically a little bit of your upbringing, where you're from and everything like that. And I'm sure a lot of people will be able to get so much value from just hearing your story overall and how we basically met.
Okay, Keia Valentine here. I'm from the Bahamas, so if you had the accent, I am a mom of 3 amazing boys, like Josh said, and this journey started just a girl from the islands that came to America in search of so much more. I always felt like my life was meant to be so much bigger. I got a naval architect degree. It was just a wonderful journey, just coming here and just learning about so much and getting to know so many people. I met Josh in college, and how it started, I guess we'll get into that in a little bit. But I always thought I would be someone who didn't have a husband, someone who didn't have kids. I thought I'd be married to the money and just this wealthy woman with just so much money and so much traveling and all of these amazing things. But God had a bigger plan for my life. And the cool thing is I still get to do all of that, all of the traveling and stuff, but with a family now. And it's so interesting that whatever dreams you have for your life, God always has something better in store. And sometimes when you're going through and you have all of these expectations of your life, you don't know what that looks like. And I think it's even surreal. Like when I talk to you all the time, it's like, wow, like we're really here. We really have 3 kids. We're really just building this life together. And it's just been exciting. And it's a great part of my journey and my story. I am a wealth strategist. I help many people with their wealth strategies and just their estate planning and all of these things. And I am honestly just living my best life.
For sure.
It's more than I imagined.
Now, I wanted you to take us back to a little bit of your childhood and what that was like, because some people hear the Bahamas. Many of you probably don't really know much of the Bahamas. You probably went on a cruise ship, but you don't really know a day in the life of what it is like being a Bahamian. And Keia and I have actually, as adults, lived in the Bahamas together with our family unit for about 10 years, and we have so many amazing people we do life with out there. But I wanted you to give the people a little bit of your childhood story and your journey and what that looked like for you, your family structure, if that makes sense, and just all of that.
I am extremely close to my family. I miss them all the time, and just being away from them, I start to get homesick, even being here in Tampa. I come from a family of working class parents. They did the best that they could to raise us and to provide for us. And they've done an excellent job, in my opinion, of doing that. Not only providing for us financially, but also giving us those values and morals and just helping us to be better people in the world, I feel. It was a great childhood, always running around, always playing outside, always just having a blast, a very happy childhood. Got to do some traveling there as well, so I've seen many places. And just growing up in a family of love. That's what I will say. Just lots of love there, lots of laughter. Like my dad is hilarious, and it's just been a great journey as a kid. Just growing up in the Bahamas. Yeah.
Now, the good thing about our relationship, I would say, is the fact that we actually get along with each other's families. So sometimes you hear the horror stories of how someone who's the husband or the wife hate the mother-in-law, the father-in-law, the sister-in-law. But fortunately for us, we've actually really love our family, our extended family, and everybody. You have to at least let them know a little bit about your siblings. You obviously have siblings who I love as well. They're my sisters. I look at them as my sisters. And even though they're sister-in-laws, of course. But yeah, tell them a little bit about your sisters.
It's 4 of us. I'm the baby of the family. My older sister, her kids are more like my siblings than she was. She's more like kind of like the mom who always, like I always got in trouble with her. And then I have my other sister, Keithra, and then my other sister, Shira. We just had so many different experiences together. It's just been a lot of fun. Being the baby of 3 girls is just always an adventure, and it's always eventful.
Definitely. Yeah. Do you ever wish that you had brothers?
Of course. Yeah, definitely. I was a tomboy growing up. I had cousins that were like brothers though. So it's like I didn't really miss out on the brothers because I grew up really close with them. So I had that even though they're not my parents' kids.
Of course.
But yeah, I have a brother-in-law that is, I guess you can say, my brother because I've known him ever since I was a little kid and I grew up with him and he is my brother. That's how I look at him.
For sure.
He's the father of my niece and nephews.
Yeah, definitely. So as a holistic life coach, one of the things that I've learned over the years through my training is typically the way we end up in life and a lot of our behavior is dependent on our relationship to a specific parent. So you may have had a closer relationship to your father or to your mother, and that determined or dictated the way that you went about life. And if there was any parent you would say, and I obviously know the answer to this, but if there's any parent you would say that you've had the closest relationship to, which one was it and why?
Definitely my mom, because I spent a lot of time, like my dad was is a provider or was a provider now that I'm older. And he had to work and all of these things. My mom was the person usually in the household, and I just got to know her more, got to know her better. And I've spent so much time with her. Like she's one of my best friends in the world. Whereas my dad is more like, he was always on a pedestal of someone that eventually I wanted to find someone that had similarities to him, because he was always a great provider and a great dad. And I would definitely say my mom, though, is that person for me. I know her deeply. She knows me deeply as well. And so it's definitely her.
For sure.
Yeah.
I would say, I was always very, I don't know the word to use, but when it comes to your life in particular, your life was just so different compared to a lot of the children that I
Yeah.
grew up with. A lot of the children that I grew up with either had single parent households
Yeah.
or very dysfunctional households. And for you, I always say that you were the light that I needed in my life because you had the typical like good family with the father, the mother, the home, just a nurturing environment, no crazy childhood trauma or anything like that. And what would you say to everybody who's watching that you feel was the most valuable aspect of growing up in that way, where you had both parents in the household, you had good examples of what it meant to be a parent through your mom who took care of you, and mom has been such a big part of our lives and our
Yes.
children's lives, and she's been such a huge support for us, and she's been very entrepreneurial, and you got to learn a lot from that.
Yes.
And your dad is obviously very hardworking and disciplined and the archetypical provider and protector. So what would you say is the greatest value of growing up like that for a lot of people today who are really striving for that, but sometimes they may feel a little guilty because maybe the situation that they're in doesn't have two-parent households? But what would you say overall is the value for people who probably lost hope in that as a family picture?
That's a great question. I will definitely say that I, as a kid, and even now, I guess I maintain that spirit, is just being someone that is willing to take risks. I think when you grow up in a family and you have two parents and you have that feeling of security, you know that the sky is the limit. Like, you could jump off a building and you will land on a, so no matter how you land, like, you're gonna be okay, if that makes sense. So it's like just growing up in a household like that, it allows you to venture out more. It allows you to spread your wings more and just take the risks that you need to take and learn the lessons, but just knowing that everything is going to be okay at the end of the day, like your parents got you.
Yeah.
So I do think that was definitely one of the things I look at when I think about myself and all of the things that I've done. Just always going for it, going for what it is that I wanted to
For
do.
sure.
And my parents also, they're never, how do you say, they never placed limiting beliefs on me, never said I couldn't do something. In fact, I would tell them what I want to do and it would be like, okay. It was never an argument or, oh, you should do this.
Yeah,
Or
sure.
it was more like, all right, if that's what you want to do, go for it. So I think having that structure and having both parents in the household, it allows kids to be able to like just do different things and venture out further than they normally would. That's just my opinion.
I would definitely agree with that. We have oftentimes conversations about that, how with a lot of children, for example, with the starters of Chipotle, the founder of Chipotle, he actually, his very first business loan came from I think his dad's 401k or something like that. And I think it was over $80,000 that he had borrowed from his dad. And he was able to benefit from even having a parent that could actually support his entrepreneurial endeavor. And I think it's definitely an advantage to be able to have that safety net, if you will. Of course, I come from the world of you burned all the boats and there's no safety net and you got to figure it out. It's you either sink or swim. But I think it would have been a lot better to know that, hey, in the event that something happens, I could always get that support from my family.
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful thing. And that's most certainly what we want for our children.
Yeah.
I am not against kids coming from wealth, and there's just such negative things, so many negative things about kids who are born with a silver spoon in their mouth. But honestly, it's if you're transcending poverty and you're evolving from generation to generation, inevitable that you're going to have a generation of kids that are a little bit more well off.
Yeah.
But I think it's a beautiful thing when you have that support from your family.
Yeah.
Like, for example, Richard Branson had phenomenal parents. He went on to be a multi-billionaire in many different industries, and he's always had that great foundation. So I am very in admiration of just that family support, and
Yes.
I don't think you should knock somebody else for maybe being born with the silver spoon in their mouth. It's just what they were obviously born into, but when it's all said and done, it is nice to have that safety net.
Yeah, and I do think too, it's like it's more than that. It's like you can have kids that are born, let's say, into wealthy families or whatever the case may be, and they may be spoiled and entitled and completely screwed up. So it's a balance because you still have to have parents that instill morals, value, ethic. Some of those things can be learned by watching your parents, and some of those things they may need to hammer it in a little bit more. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but I do know that it's a lot more that goes into bringing up a child that's going to stand on our shoulders as giants and see further into the world than those that are going to stand there and do absolutely nothing.
For
You know what I
sure,
mean?
for
So
sure.
it's more to it.
Definitely.
But definitely, I think
Yeah.
it's a great starting point to
For
have
sure.
a family that has both parents.
For sure.
Yeah.
And before we get more into even parenting in itself, I want to bring everybody back to how we even met in the first place. So it was the summer of 2007 when we first enrolled
Yeah.
into college. We went to a military structured college, and I went there to study international business and pursue a Coast Guard license. And Keia went there for naval architecture. She had a engineering scholarship to basically go to this school and get an engineering degree. And at the time, I remember naval architecture was the second hardest degree in America to obtain, if I'm not mistaken. And it's interesting because the university that we went to actually was known for the #1 school for highest starting salaries right out of college. So everybody we graduated with pretty much had high six-figure incomes, sometimes in the maritime industry or something related or in engineering. And I remember specifically enrolling in the whole Coast Guard licensing program just to ensure that I was getting paid, because I grew up in the ghetto, and when I left the hood, I just knew without a shadow of a doubt that I wasn't going back. I had no safety net. I have no family support to be able to go in the summers and everything like that. I literally left East New York, Brooklyn with everything that I owned and went straight to that campus, and I said I would never step foot over there again. And I just did everything in my power to figure out places to sleep, and I joined the regiment of cadets.
Yes,
and
I
I was
remember that.
fortunate enough to be able to go on summer sea terms, and one of which we went on together. And this school, you typically went in the summer times to sail all around the world on this training ship. And you learned all kinds of different skills: celestial navigation, terrestrial navigation. You learned how to apply so many different aspects of seamanship out on the water, and it was incredible. It was a really awesome college experience. But to give you guys a little bit about how we met, it's an
How?
interesting story. I don't know if you want to get it kicked off.
Yeah, so when I went to this college, I always wore my hair really short, like a boy. Like I had what they call it, is it a Caesar?
Oh, yeah, Caesar, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a blonde Caesar.
A blonde Caesar, looking like a little chia pet. But anyway, so I had this little blonde Caesar, and I was taking up my things, and a guy who I was pulling, it was like a chest full of stuff. Like I had to put all of these things in my room, and he just so happened to be passing by, and he saw me and he said, "Hey, you need help?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so he lifted this chest and took it to my room. And oddly enough, that was Josh's best friend, Daryl.
Yeah.
And so he helped me put my things up, and I was talking to my roommate, and I was just saying I need to get my hair cut or something. And he said, "Oh, my roommate is a ball." And I was like, "What? Tell him, come. You think he would cut my hair or whatever?" And he said, "Yeah, I'll call him right now." And so he calls Josh. Josh comes in, he cuts my hair, and it was the worst.
Let me rewind. Not to cut you off. I have to tell.
The
So,
worst haircut ever in my life.
So the story actually goes, that's all facts, by the way.
That is.
And I must say, I got to give them a little bit of context. So when I was in college, my senior year, I remember one of my teammates, so I played football, I wrestled, and I ran track. And one of my teammates on the football team, his dad, who was a barber, he gave us the bright idea, hey, you should probably learn how to cut hair before going off to college. That way you can make yourself some money while you're at school. And I thought it was a great idea. I wanted to go legit with my life. I didn't want to be doing anything illegal. So I said, you know what? Let me go buy me some clippers and I'll just figure this thing out. What Keia didn't know was she was actually my very first customer.
I was the guinea pig, pretty much.
She was a guinea pig.
Yes.
And I pushed her hairline back.
All the way back.
As they say, what you were saluting from back here.
Yeah, pretty much. Even when I think about it, I still get mad.
It wasn't that. I don't think it was that bad.
It was bad.
Anyway.
But it was bad. It was so bad that I had to get a wig. It was so bad. But the funny part was he asked me, he was like, you like it? And honestly, I looked at him and I said, I don't know, I didn't want to hurt his feelings. Like I
thought it was fine. I thought I laced her up. I had the hairline on point. Everything was square. Apparently, I pushed the hairline too back.
It was too far back, and I was looking like, I don't know, an alien or something. And I went and got a wig, and I put it on. But he had the audacity to ask me what I thought. And I wanted to let him down easy because it was genuine. It was a genuine thing, like him asking me, and I said, I really like it. It's really nice. And he said, okay, awesome. And so he packed up his things and he left. And the next day, I went to the store and I bought me a wig and I threw that on.
I didn't know you bought you a wig,
yes.
But it's all good. So that's actually our very first interaction. But a few months later, we ended up getting the same class together. Yes. So we were in the same college class, and Darrow, I think, was also in that class as well.
It was a few of like when we first met all of these people.
Yeah. So long story short, we're taking this class, and then we had these formal dinners that happened with the cadets every single year, and Keia didn't necessarily have it. She had a date.
Someone asked me.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to go with him.
Yeah.
But I said I didn't want to let him down too, so I said, sure, no problem.
Yeah, so I guess you did have a date, but I didn't have a date, and I was just going to go, and I said, you know what, let me just go, and it'll be a good time. And this brother, for whatever reason, I think he got into a car accident or something like that.
It was something worse, but we're not going to talk about that.
He flaked out on the actual formals. He ended up going by herself. I was by myself.
Yes.
And we are those people that love to dance. Yes. So I always love to dance. Keia loved to dance. And we just danced the whole night away. And that night, she unfortunately didn't let me come into her dorm room, but it's all good.
Come into my dorm room.
I may have just wanted to have some more casual conversation.
I'm sure, yes, casually.
Yeah.
But he asked, like, he was just looking at me standing there, and I was like, okay, have a good night. And I went to my room, and that was it.
Yeah, so that kind of sparked things off, I would say. We just became friends. It didn't start off as a relationship or anything like that. We just became friends, and as the next semester rolled around, she eventually went off on the training ship. Now, I was a civilian in this university at that time.
So a civilian, someone who's not in a regiment of cadets.
Yeah, so I was a civilian, and
they don't go out to sea.
Yeah, so she went out to sea, and she did the whole training ship thing. And I remember just missing her and really excited for her to come back. And then she finally came back, and that kind of just sparked the beginning of our relationship, from our friendship, just getting to know each other a lot more. And I remember that first year, I ended up going to the Bahamas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was still a teenager. My very first time going to the Bahamas was a teenager, and I went and met her family for the first time, and a lot of her friends and everything like that.
A lot of first times on that trip, for sure.
So I would say, you know what's interesting? We never had an official day where we started dating.
No, we didn't.
Yeah. We just knew, hey, this is like dating. We didn't have an official date where we said, hey, this is the day. It just evolved into that over time. And it's crazy to think about it now, reflecting on it. And anyway, after graduating from college, so we were together throughout the entire time. We endured those years. throughout college, and I would say we had a good
Yeah,
relationship.
we did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much typical college sweethearts who slept in the same
I was
twin size bed.
tiny,
Yeah.
tiny bed.
We
But
both sleep on that twin size bed,
we have a
and
big bed now, and it's so weird.
yeah, for sure. And after graduating from college, Keia graduated a little bit after me, but I went and I had worked for a company that I interned for, working as a maritime captain. I worked my way up to become a maritime captain with the Merchant Marines, and I was basically making a six-figure income with benefits and pension, transporting cargo all around the United States. And then Keia eventually graduated, and the interesting thing about that is right around this time is when we started our entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on? So for those of you who are getting value right now from this episode, or maybe you watched the entire thing and you absolutely love what you heard, and perhaps you want to take your personal development to the next level, maybe you want to take your life or business to the next level, I actually offer a limited amount of slots every single week for one-on-one clients. Now, if you have any interest whatsoever in getting a one-on-one coaching session with me, I want to encourage you to click the link in the description box and set up a meeting with me. Let's definitely talk about some of your dreams and aspirations that you have for yourself. Maybe you want to improve on certain dimensions of your life, and I know without a shadow of a doubt I can most certainly help you get to that next level. So looking forward to meeting with you on a one-to-one basis. Take care, guys. So our entrepreneurial journey has been quite interesting, and for those of you who don't know, Keia and I, we've done so many different businesses together. We are the typical serial entrepreneurs, investors, and we've marketed and sold well over 1,000 products online over the years, and we've launched all kinds of really cool things over the years. And it's been interesting just not only being married, but also when we started our entrepreneurial journey, the cool thing about it is we started when we were dating. So we got to experience a little bit of what that looked like dating, what it looked like through marriage, and so much more. So if you can just give an idea or give the audience a little bit about what your experience has been like just working with your significant other as a business partner over the years.
It's been a lot of different things. Let me put it like that. It has had its ups and downs, like I guess any relationship, whether it's business or not. It's interesting because when you are in business with your significant other, it's that extra tension that exists because you take business home. And when you're supposed to be home relaxing, you're still talking about business. It's figuring out how to have work-life integration the best that we could, and just learning how to figure out how to take off the business hat and come home and vice versa, because also when we're in business mode, we need to be in business mode, and a lot of the times you can't have personal feelings depending on what kind of business and what it is that you're there to do. So it's been a roller coaster. It's been up, it's been down. It's been a lot of lessons learned, a lot of learning each other, learning how we both interact during the times when it struggles, learning how we act when it's times of victory. So it's been a learning experience.
Yeah. And I like to keep it real with just people that I talk to about this in particular, because business and doing business with the person that you're romantic with is not easy. I'll just say that. And this has contributed to the vast majority of a lot of our issues. It's been the source of a lot of our frustration over the years, and for so many different reasons. And one of the reasons, they say that there was always this misconception that money is the number one cause of divorce. And I remember hearing another study say that it's not actually the money, it's the communication on money. So we've had to navigate just how to go about money. For example, when we were dating, the way we went about our money was very different than when we were married. And just even as business partners, I know I most certainly have made the mistake of not knowing when to take off my business hat and put on my significant other hat. Whether that was as a boyfriend or a fiance or as a husband, I would say that most certainly has been the most challenging thing. And entrepreneurship is tough because it's very cyclical in nature. Just like anything else, you're going to have your up seasons, your down seasons, and when you are in survival mode and you are really doing the best that you can to keep the business alive, it becomes stressful. And when you're in that stressful state, the last thing you're thinking about is nurturing your partner's needs and being there for every single need of theirs. So I really wanted us to talk more so to the people about just the real side of what that looked like for us. Because some people, they have this idea that, oh, it'll be amazing doing a business with the person that I love the most. And I can tell you from firsthand experience that it is not as easy as most people think. And I would love it if you just share with the people, and I'm okay with you being brutally honest. I don't want to sugarcoat anything. I am very aware that our great grandchildren will probably be looking at this at some point in time. And I want them to hear what it actually entailed. That way they don't have this misconception that it was all sunshine and rainbows, where a lot went into building generational wealth. A lot went into solidifying our family structure, and a lot of heartache, a lot of disappointment, a lot of frustration, a lot of just moments where we weren't even sure if we were going to make it. So many different reasons. And I would just love it if you just share with the people what it's been like for you, and also just being a independent woman, but also being with a very strong type A personality man. That in itself is very difficult for many women. And if you could just share with the audience some of the biggest challenges for you doing business together.
I would say that because both of us are very aggressive in terms of what it is that we want, and we didn't see eye to eye all the time. We do things differently, which is fair because we are two completely different people. And so when you come into a business where it's like both of us were now at the helm, it's like we're partners, it's difficult when we can't see eye to eye, or we can't figure out, okay, what roles we should play. And I think that was one of the mistakes that we made, because we both were just doing things the way that we wanted, not necessarily looking at each other's strengths, each other's weaknesses, and figuring out, okay, what roles do we want to play? And so that brought a lot of tension into our relationship because we just do things differently. It is what it is.
I would say with the relationship, in terms of my flaw, it has always been patience. I would say it's been very difficult for me to extend that patience. And you and I we do business at different tempos. You're more of an island gal, I'm a city boy, and I'm New York City. So we do everything by the minute.
But I think patience is just something, it's not just business, it's just in life. No matter if we were in business together or not, like we just move at different tempos. So regardless of whether it was business or personal, it would still be an issue. But the fact that we were in business and also doing life together, it was even more of just a power struggle.
Yeah, for sure.
To be able to control our destinies and to be able to control how we wanted to move and how we saw things, and to be able to express ourselves to our fullest potential based on how we looked at how we wanted to go about stuff. So it was always that constant back and forth between the both of us, figuring out how to come together for our family, but also to be able to express our individuality at the same time.
Yeah, I think you made a really good point too, in terms of just seeing what we're good at and how we can basically just leverage our strengths in a sense. Because one of the things that I had learned over the years where I went wrong was being the sacred masculine in the relationship. What we provide is the structure, is the discipline, is just our ability to give organization and discipline and structure and all these different things that we have that are spiritual gifts, whereas the divine feminine has this beautiful power. And I love the analogy of the sacred masculine sort of being like the canals, the locks and the dams, and the divine feminine is more like this raging river, and we're here to give that river just guidance, and we're here to give that river just optimize its potential. And I was trying to project my masculine gifts on you and not necessarily seeing the value in what you had to bring to the table, which was a lot of value. And you've contributed so much to our businesses over the years. And again, if I feel what happens is us men, sometimes we want our woman to be more like us. And what happens in the process of that, unfortunately, is you relinquish your crown. You relinquish your crown and you start to adopt a more 50-50 mentality where we're equals in a sense, equals in terms of our gifts and our abilities. And I would say that although we're equal, we're different. And it's so important to embrace our differences and what we can bring to the table.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I feel like if I knew that a lot sooner, I would not have put that sort of pressure on you to be more masculine, if you will.
Yeah.
Because you get depolarized. And when you become depolarized as a couple, it takes away all of the passion. And you start to grow apart in that sense. And I'm grateful ultimately that we were able to eventually just figure that out as time went on.
For sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And women do things differently in business, in life. And there are so many successful women, and they have the ability to be able to do business the way they like to, the way that where they thrive, how they thrive. And when it's like you have, like you said, two people and you're doing your best to live up to someone's expectation of how they think you should do things, because it's not necessarily like how you do things is incorrect. Like maybe there's things that both people can learn from each other, but at your essence, you still have to be in a position where you do business the way you're proud of, the way you could say, you know what, I did it the way that I wanted to do it. And I feel like when you come into a relationship, it is compromise.
Yes.
It's not always, you can't always do everything the way you like, unfortunately, but there is that compromise, but also not losing yourself at the same time. So I think it's important for people to have those conversations with their significant other and find out if this is even something they want to do together. Because honestly, some people should not be in business together at all.
Yeah, and there most certainly have been times where we just decided to move on with business, where we did not engage in the same business anymore. And that most certainly reduced a lot of the friction that we were experiencing and alleviated us of a lot of that frustration. And if there's anything that I would love to even share, number one is setting healthy boundaries. When you're in business with your partner, one of the things that I wasn't necessarily aware of was just setting healthy boundaries. So today, I'm honestly proud to say that typically after 8, 9, definitely by 10 p.m., we're shutting it down. For a lot of years, I would say about a decade, we just had no boundaries. We worked all day long, all through the night, and even on Sundays. And today we take Sundays off. And it's so important for us to make sure that we are taking time for our family, that we're setting time for each other. And that's been a big part of just our boundaries and having holistic wellness in a sense when it came to our relationship. And it's just made the biggest difference. If you love this podcast episode, you are absolutely going to love my weekly Breakfast Club sessions where I offer complimentary life coaching and mentorship. And I do this live. So you guys can follow me on Facebook, and I go live every single Tuesday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I have people tune in from all around the world. I've been doing this for years, and you can get all kinds of value from your personal life to entrepreneurship skills and leadership and mindset and so many other things. So I look forward to seeing you every single week on the Breakfast Club, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern. See you there. So our journey into engagement was quite an interesting one, because we actually got engaged in Mexico, and we had our family, our friends there. And if you don't mind just sharing what the experience was like for the engagement. And yeah, I think that would be really awesome.
It was nice having my family there for sure. I'm glad that you did it at that moment. And I absolutely loved my ring. So I thought you did a great job on that. You did not make sure my nails were done, which I was very mad, because I was like, really? Because you have to show off the ring. But other than that, it was just a beautiful moment. It was a surprise seeing the dessert, because I did not expect that at all. I was so shocked, and you did a great job.
What about the dessert?
It was, oh, the ring was in the dessert.
Yeah.
And so I always ask for dessert. This relationship works because I eat all the dessert, okay? No joke.
Yeah, I don't eat dessert, but
he will
she
eat
eats
a
all the
little
dessert
piece of the
for
dessert,
sure.
and I eat the full thing. So it works. And I order dessert all the time, and he knew that. So we ate and all of that stuff. And then after that, I asked for dessert, and they brought out the dessert and placed it in front of me. And I kid you not, I was like, this dessert about to be good. And the guy lifted it up, and then I saw the ring, and I was so shocked and just so happy in that moment. Honestly, I don't even remember everything that you said, because in that moment I was just going through the motions of just being shocked that you did this. But it was so beautiful that you thought to have my parents there, because that was really important to me, and it was just a beautiful moment.
Yeah, it was amazing. And it's funny because some of the people that were at the neighboring tables are still some of our closest friends today, which is amazing. And the thing about it, I will recommend this for those of you brothers who are watching: get that woman's father's blessing. So I did get Keia's father's blessing before asking her to marry me, of course. And it was just really cool to have her parents there to be able to witness their daughter getting engaged and us getting engaged in general. Now, if you can fast forward a little bit after that and marriage, I want to say this just for the record. I did not intend on getting married so soon. I was actually going to wait. I didn't mind waiting 7 years or to 32 years old. I thought 32 was right? 32 is when people typically get married.
Yeah.
So we were about 25, close to 25, 24, 25, and I figured we could probably be engaged and enjoy our lives for about 32 years old, and then maybe from there we can end up having kids. But God had a different plan, of course.
Yes.
And if you can just share a little bit about us getting married and when that even happened and all of that stuff.
First of all, I am a student that is an international student. So I'm here in this country, and I'm just thinking about, okay, I'm living with this man. At the time, we already got a place together. And in my culture, it's called shacking up. It's looked at as if you're with someone, and I know that's not everybody's culture, and that's fine, but it's not looked at as a good thing. It's like you're gonna spend time with someone. So that's just how I look at things differently now, but I'm just saying that's the culture that I came from. And so at the time, I wanted to get married, but I also understood your culture and how you guys go about things as well. And we got engaged, and the plan was to eventually get married, but I didn't mind waiting at least a year or 2 years or so. Josh had a longer time frame, but a year, 2 years would have been good for me. But what ended up happening is I went to the Bahamas, and I went just for a short trip, and I was coming back. And when I was coming back, the Border Protection Customs US officers stopped me, and it was a whole thing. I had an interview and everything, and they determined that they shouldn't let me back into the US. So they banned me. They canceled my visa. everything, and they banned me indefinitely because there wasn't a time frame. I cried because I was like, oh my goodness, this cannot be happening right now. I can't go back. It was just one of those moments where I was just distraught. And so I called Josh and I explained the situation, and I am so upset. And he says, it's okay. And so we planned the wedding in
It was probably like less than a month.
weeks.
Yeah, in about 2 to 3 weeks, we planned the wedding because one of the only ways to resolve this was for her to be married to an American. And I never had any issues with marrying Keia.
We were already engaged.
I didn't see, yeah, and we were engaged already. So I just didn't see the purpose in just getting married right away. But when this happened, it only made sense. If we were going to get married anyway, why not just get it over with? So that's what we did. And it did not take long for me to just say, hey, let's just move on with this. And literally less than 6 months from our engagement, we were married.
Yes. And it's interesting because we put that wedding together, no joke, family and friends, they just came together and did everything.
On a beach.
Floral arrangements, we got married on a beach, like we had a tent, and it was just beautiful.
Yeah.
It was such an intimate, beautiful experience. And if I had to do it another way, I wouldn't change it for the world, because we thought that we would do the original traditional marriage where the big wedding ceremony and all of those things. But in that moment, it was perfect, just the way it should have been. I had all my closest friends there. Some were missing, but your family was missing. I was really sad about that. But that's the only thing I would change, is that they would be able to be there. But other than that, everything was really nice.
Yeah. So we ended up getting married, and I would say literally we moved quick, y'all. So we didn't plan on having our very first kid as soon as we did, but it was just one of those things where we were already established. So by the time Keia and I were about 24 years old, Keia going into 25 or right around that, we were retired from the workforce. So through our entrepreneurial endeavors and investments and all these different things, we said, you know what, we're going to go all in on ourselves and pretty much go full time as entrepreneurs and investors. So we were retired from the workforce, we were established, and we said, when she did get pregnant, let's just do it. Let's move forward with it. And we had our son, Z. And just so that you guys know, the reason why his name was, we gave him the name Z, it's actually a Chinese name. It's spelled Z-H-I, and it stands for knowledge, purpose, and will. So usually in the Chinese language, they have many different meanings to the names. And I remember hearing that I think in Chinese culture, they believe that whatever name you give to a child, they'll end up taking on that characteristic. So you'll have many children that have the name like Happy or Lucky, and they believe that they take on those characteristics. We decided to name our child Z. And one of the other reasons was you were 6 months pregnant when you walked 1,500 steps up the Great Wall of China.
Yes, my mom was terrified, mortified. She was so afraid that I would give birth there on the wall because it was a lot of steps, but I was so active and I was running every single day. So that was light work for me.
Yeah, so we were inspired. We were inspired. We went with the Chinese name, and we're happy that we did.
All of our kids have meanings to their names, which is important.
And they all have 3-letter names. It wasn't very long after that, and I remember us just having these conversations like, hey, if we're going to have kids, and we had our minds fixed on maybe 2 or 3 kids. I think if we would have had the second kid, we may have stopped right there.
It's possible.
But when we had 2 boys, we said, you know what, let's try one last time. After the 3rd boy, we were just like, nah, that's a whole basketball team. There's just no way. That's a risk. That is a risk. Yeah, and I wasn't trying to follow my parents' path and have all these kids. So 3 was good enough for me at the time, of course, and we have 3 till this day. And we said, you know what, if it's gonna suck, we're gonna suffer, let's suffer fast. let's get it
let's
over
just
with
do
and
it.
knock them all out. And that's what we did.
Yes.
All of our children, we had about 3 boys in a 4-year span, I would say.
Yeah.
And we had our son Ari and then our son Koa directly after that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was a lot on the body, just emotionally. I wouldn't recommend everyone goes that path where they do it in a short period. It has its pros and cons, just like anything else. The great thing, they grow up together as best friends. But at the same time, on me, it was very taxing emotionally. So
For sure,
yeah.
for sure. Now, I want you to, if you don't mind, just share a little bit about your journey through motherhood, because that's a big part of your identity today. That's a big part of who you are and your life purpose. And if you can just shed some light a little bit about what that has been like, and even its effect on marriage, its effect on business, its effect just on your life in general. I think it would be amazing, because you definitely didn't intend on having all of these children, but you did, and you maneuvered well. But yeah, it would be amazing.
That's a lot to unpack. Okay, let me start with the first one. So on myself, just being a first-time mom, especially, it was so much to learn, and it was a challenge. It was figuring things out, just figuring it out, not feeling like enough, not feeling like I'm doing a great job. Just those fears and those, I guess, guilt of at the same time of being a mom, and in a sense wanting to live your old life, but at the same time you have this new life. It was a constant, I guess, power struggle of identities for me, because I was accustomed to being who I was, doing what I needed to do. But now I have this little baby that is relying on me, and just figuring out how to be the best at both. And oftentimes, because I was still heavily involved in the business, and every time I would go away, like on a trip, I would feel so guilty. And it was a business trip and it was to make our family better. But at the same time, I always had that guilt. I always had that guilt that my child is going to miss me. I'm not being a good mom, because so I should be there. And all of these different things, when you're a woman in business and a mom at the same time, it's not easy from an emotional standpoint dealing with all of that. Especially, there's one side that's saying, oh, you should be at home with your kids. And then like when you're not there, you feel that hard. And I really had to put things into perspective, because there are so many moms that do work and they don't have a choice. Fortunately, as an entrepreneur, I had a choice, and I still chose to grind, and I still chose to be out there at the forefront and doing what it is that I needed to do. And I had the option to lay back and just be that mom, but it's not what I wanted to do. And so I had to put the perspective in place in my mind that, hey, there are moms doing it. They don't have a choice. So my kids will be fine. Like, they will be all right if I'm off on a business trip, if I am doing the work that I felt was necessary at the time. And so I think a lot of these mind games come into play when you're a mom and figuring things out. Dads don't have that same pressure, I feel, in society. Dads go out and do whatever it is that they need to do for their family. And it's no one telling them, oh, you should be home, or this is the capacity you should be in. And so this was all new to me. It's just a dark time, but I found a lot of strength and a lot of light just talking to other moms and figuring it out. Now on marriage, it was difficult, just constantly being pregnant all the time. I felt like I was pregnant forever. And just on the body, just the emotions, the feelings, everything you go through. And it was affecting our relationship a lot, because Josh needed me to be there for him, because men have needs too, even though we're going through what we're going through. And so I wasn't able to see him, because I was dealing with all of these kids crying and trying to do this and all of these things, but not being able to be there for him, because I was doing my best to be there for myself. And I think there was a time where all of it came to a head, where it's just, we didn't even know if we would be together anymore, because it was so much.
Yeah.
And I guess you could speak to what you were going through at that time. I know for me, I was just feeling a lot of pressure and feeling a lot of, I wasn't doing enough, or I wasn't being there enough. But at the same time, I was dealing with so much. I couldn't emotionally be there for someone else.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So this by far was the toughest time of our entire marriage, by far.
Yeah.
And for me, what I was going through, and of course, it's so easy to look at the men and just say, you weren't the one that were pregnant. And
Yeah.
that's valid. That's very valid. I'll just explain what my truth was at that point in time. And we're still healing in a sense from this season of our
Yes, that was
marriage.
painful.
It was that tough.
Yeah.
And basically what happened in a nutshell was you and I were 50-50 on a business that was generating millions of dollars in revenues. We had thousands of customers all around the world. We were community builders. We had a massive community of people that we were nurturing. And when you started having kids, obviously your attention wasn't able to pretty much be dealing with all of these operations. And we went from 50-50 business partnerships to now, like, I would say 90-10 for a lot of it. And it was a lot. It was a lot of pressure. And during this time, we also were going through business challenges. We had all kinds of things where at one point in time, we weren't even able to receive our compensation.
Yeah.
So I had all of this weight on taking care of business, taking care of our family, and then to not have my needs met, my physical and emotional needs, because you're so tied up in our kids. I would say we were probably overly ambitious with that idea of having all of our kids at one time, because another thing was you breastfed all of our kids.
Yeah.
And because you breastfed, it was so much easier for you to be able to just have them sleep with us. And I can tell y'all right now, that is a big mistake. If you have your children sleeping in the bed with you and your significant other, it is a huge mistake.
But at the same time, as a mom with all of these kids and being exhausted and having to get up in the middle of the night, our marriage suffered, but at the same time, I needed to be able to get some rest.
For sure.
So it wasn't the best decision for intimacy and all of that, but that was the last thing on my mind, honestly.
Yeah, exactly.
I was too exhausted to be intimate and all of those things. And although your needs are valid, it's like it was so much going on at that time.
Yeah, most definitely.
With me that I just couldn't be there.
Definitely.
You know?
And I would say that one of the things that I learned along the way was, as men, we could never conceptualize or just understand emotional range that you women go through, because it is very expansive. And we may very well think that you can do a lot more, because that was my logic. You're home, you don't even have to cook meals. I'm bringing all of these meals to you, because 99% of the time you didn't have to. And that was just a reality.
Yeah, definitely.
And in my mind, seeing my mom, for example, do it with all of my siblings, thinking, oh, of course you can just hold it down. It's not going to be an issue, right? I didn't have to work or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I can't necessarily say that I could ever understand what you were going through emotionally in your body and everything like that. And that's where I went wrong. Because I had all of these expectations from you, like you could do a little bit more, not truly understanding what you were going through in your body and your mind and so on and so forth.
Yeah. I just think being a first-time mom and then having kids back to back, it's one thing. I think, like with your mom, for example, she had you and your brother.
She had a few back to back.
Yeah, she did have a few
back to back.
But I think, but Maya and Antonella came after.
Me and Nina were back to back.
You and Nina
a
were
year
back
and
to
10
back,
months apart. Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't compare anyone's journey, but I can just say, as a first time mom figuring it out, it's like I had 3 kids all at once as a first time mom, because it's like it never ended. So it was just a lot going on. And if I had to do it again, I would do it the exact same way, because I do feel like now watching them grow and stuff, it was the best decision. But going through it, it was rough.
Yeah, yeah,
It was rough.
yeah.
guys.
And we were honestly blessed to have support. So
Yeah.
I will say that we
Thank
did
God.
not have to do it on our own. We had huge family support, and it was still challenging. We
Yes.
still very well had our challenges along the way. And if you can have the family support, by all means, go for it. And kudos to the single moms who are doing it, because
Definitely.
I have no
I don't know
idea.
how.
Yeah, it's got to be tough, because it was even tough for us
Yeah.
as a married couple being
Absolutely.
together and having family support.
Yeah.
And it was still very challenging. So
And the single dads too.
yeah,
Can't leave
and the
them
single
out,
dads,
'cause,
of course.
yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely.
Y'all are
Yeah.
awesome too.
So all in all, we managed to push through, right, in some of the darkest moments. And we could say that, I can say that for me, I wasn't sure. I only had one period of my life where I wasn't sure if we were going to continue on. And I felt like we were growing apart in a sense as well, because you were nurturing for about 4 years straight, and I had all of this growth in business and my personal life, and I just felt like we were growing apart at one point in time. Plus, we weren't knowing how to meet each other's needs.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of
was
our
a big
problems
lesson.
lied.
Yeah.
Is not knowing how to meet each other's needs.
Yeah.
And there's actually a book that I would recommend. Many of you probably have heard of it. The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman is really good. So you have to understand each other's love language, for example. Mine is the love language of acts of service. I love acts of service. I love the cooking and the cleaning and all of that from my partner. Anything that you can do to serve me goes a long way. And what's yours?
Mine was definitely gifts. Okay, I'm not ashamed to say that.
Yeah, and I think it's changed over the years.
It's more personal time now, but definitely it has changed over the years.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I love getting gifts, because that's what my parents always got me, gifts, like growing up. And those were some of my fondest memories.
For sure. I think mine has probably even evolved a little bit into more physical touch these days.
Yeah.
And so your needs could very well change, but I think where we went wrong, or I don't want to even say wrong, because everything
It's a learning experience.
Yeah, it's a learning experience, but if we knew how to meet each other's needs a little bit better, or even had the capacity to meet each other's needs a lot better, then we would have been better off. But it all worked out. And we can speak about the journey now to be able to help people who are going through the same thing. But for example, Keia needed more TLC. So I feel like a lot of our problems lied where you needed more support with the kids and just having more TLC during your pregnancy. And meanwhile, I was struggling just keeping the business afloat, and I had all that stress and that pressure on myself, just running things. And also I had needs for intimacy, and you just didn't have it in you to even deliver on that. So
it's just exhausting.
Of course. So even knowing that, when you don't even have the capacity to be able to do that, what do you do then, right? And I think you try your best, but communication is a big one.
Communication, definitely, and understanding that you guys are in it as a team. It's really, the issue doesn't really lie with you. It's more like the issue is the problem, whatever that problem is, and you guys have to figure out the best way to solve it together, because that's the only way to move forward. And in that space where we were on separate teams when we should have been on the same team, and we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot from that, and it's made us stronger today because of those experiences.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you could get past it, if you could get past it, I feel like you would definitely be much stronger.
Yeah, I love the saying that it's never you against your partner, it's you against the issue, you against the problem. So when we finally understood that, hey, we're not necessarily fighting each other, we're fighting this problem that we have. And if we could just solve the problem, then we'll figure each other out. And once we got that, things just naturally got better. And over time, it got a little easier as kids.
Yeah, the kids got older as well. And finally kicked them out the bed.
Finally kicked them out the bed.
That was a process, but we got them out.
Most definitely. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about managing wealth because you're a wealth strategist and you have many clients and stuff like that. And I wanted you to share a little bit about how we have gone about our finances from dating all the way through marriage and now as parents, what that looks like. And maybe you can give just a little bit of advice for those who are just starting out on some of the best ways to go about their wealth.
If you are in like if you're just dating, that's a little different. You would have your separate accounts and all of those things. We actually spoke to I guess
A money coach.
A money coach, and she really shed a lot of light on how we were going about our finances as well, just being individuals and then coming together as a unit and what that should look like. And it should look different for every person. I am not going to tell you that you should commingle everything. I'm not going to tell you that makes the most sense for everyone. However, you should be transparent with each other as much as you possibly can. So with us, we have our own separate accounts, but we also have a joint account, and we're able to do what it is that we want to do with our separate accounts. So we keep that individuality, just the things we enjoy, because there are relationships where one person would be like so tight, like so frugal, and then the other one would just like to spend money, and one makes the other one feel bad for being frugal or a spendthrift, right? And it's like you should both have your accounts so that you can do what it is that you enjoy. If you have a hobby, if you like to fix cars, or for women, whatever it is that you like to do, you should be able to do that in your relationship once it does not impact your family unit and your family finances. So it has to be communication at the end of the day. You have to figure out, okay, what are the negotiables? What are the non-negotiables? Making sure that you guys are on the same page financially, but you also have enough space to be able to do things that you truly enjoy. Because the last thing you want to do is get into a relationship and now everything that you loved is being stripped away from you in the name of family finances. And I do believe that when people are happier, when they're able to be themselves more, they bring more to the table, they're more productive, because they're in a better space. And so that's very important. But after you get married, it's talking about what do you want as a unit? What do you want to provide for your kids? What do you see into the future that is something that you want to make sure that's there for your family? So like establishing a family trust could be one of them. Making sure you definitely have a will as well. Just getting things in order, because God forbid anything happens to any of you, you want to make sure that all of the things you guys talked about, at least you can put that into play. Even if you don't get it perfect, at least you have some kind of structure, because your next generations should be better off financially, in my opinion, than you were if you go about it the right way. So it's really communication on finances, but also being able to enjoy what you enjoy at the same time.
Yeah, I would most certainly say that whenever you're communicating on money, just make sure that you're both neutral, you're not fired up, you're not angry, anything. Find a safe space to be able to have that talk or have those conversations, because it can get very tense.
It can.
It's a very sensitive topic. And again, this is what ultimately leads to the most divorce.
Yeah, communication.
And as we all know, over 50% of married couples end up in divorce. So if you can figure this out, it will most certainly help you in so many different ways. What's going on, family? So for those of you who maybe have had a heart to serve your entire life, you love the idea of helping people, inspiring people, helping people take their lives to the next level, possibly heal and transform as a person, then I would 100% say that you have to hit me up as soon as possible. I'd love to just give you a little bit of information on how I go about the life coaching process. Maybe you've wanted to be a life coach at some point in time, or maybe you thought it was a little bit far-fetched or a little far out there in terms of an idea, but I want to encourage you to embark on this journey with me. I actually have a certification program that lasts about 6 months where you get to work with me on a one-to-one basis, and I teach you all of my strategies and tools and modalities on how I get my clients results. As many of today, I provide coaching and consulting for leaders and organizations in industry, entertainment, education, and government, and I will show you guys how I get my clients results, and ultimately will certify you after 6 months to be able to be an official certified life coach with me. And I'm really excited to embark on that journey for those of you who qualify. So feel free to click the link in the description box and set up a call with me. That way I can give you a little bit more information on that. Take care. Now, wealth is one of those things that is absolutely important for legacy purposes. And as a wealth strategist yourself, I know that you have a lot of different ways that you typically recommend, especially for your clients who want to build an estate, they want to build generational wealth. How would you say the average couple starting out should go about their wealth as a family?
The first thing I would say is people should communicate with one another with what are their goals, because everyone comes into a marriage having goals before that marriage. It could be whatever it is. And when they come together, I think it's important for them to establish what those goals were before, and also what are some things they would like to do together. Because if they have to put every single thing on the back burner of what they had before, it may feel like they're not in alignment or accomplishing things that have been probably heavy on their heart for a long time, or just things that they want to feel like, yes, I did it. So I always tell couples, let's talk about it. And it's good to have someone there, because Josh said it does get tense sometimes depending on what kind of situation they're coming into. Let's say when we're talking about their strategy moving forward, all of those feelings of shame and guilt and anger may already be there from them trying to do it themselves and trying to figure everything out themselves. So when I sit down with a couple and I talk to them, it's good for them to be able to express themselves, obviously respectfully, but to put it all out there in the open of what bothers them about whatever their plan was. This is the time to be open and honest with what it is that you really want to do, or what it is that you don't want to do, because that's not your plan. It's just good to have the conversation about those things and what matters to them as well.
Sure.
So that's one thing. After they've established what are their goals, their individual and also their couple goals, then we can move on to more of the strategy of how they're going to be able to do that. Because a lot of people think about things as either or. They don't really think about the fact that they could have both. So sometimes it's a lot of stress and anger because they're thinking about, oh, if I do this, I can't do that. So just coming up with a strategy where they're both able to do what it is that they want to do. And it's quite possible it may take a bit longer, but at least they're on the path to doing that. And that gives people more of, I guess you could say, a light at the end of the tunnel, knowing that, hey, at least I'm moving forward to that and moving forward to our family goals. And then obviously when it comes to your kids, just figuring out what are some values and things you want to pass along, because creating wealth is not just about money. It is, if you want to pass that on for generations, you're the people that are going to be your grandkids and great grandkids. It matters what it is that they understand about money. It matters about what they may learn that's incorrect. All of those things, sometimes it's a lot of unlearning and relearning. So making sure that your kids and your family, even if you're the person that can't teach them these things because maybe you're not in a position, at least having someone else that can guide them and help them along the way so that they establish a better financial future than you did at their age. So it's not an excuse to not be someone that is knowledgeable about finances, because you can always find someone that is, and you can learn at the same time they learn. So making sure you put them in a position to win, even if you didn't start off on the right foot.
Yeah, for sure. If there's any practical strategies or tools that I would recommend in terms of what has worked for us, number one was educating ourselves on how money works in the first place, and understanding taxes, understanding credit, and doing your very best to preserve your credit to make sure that you are up to date with your taxes. That has been super beneficial, especially as an entrepreneur, because it's so easy to get just just
Sidetracked.
so sidetracked and so back you can very well go years without paying your taxes
It's
if you're
true.
not on top of it,
Yeah,
right? And
absolutely.
it can be painful when you have to pay a bunch of money to Uncle Sam, and
Yes.
you have to be careful with that because you can put it on the back burner for too long and it ends up overwhelming you.
Yeah.
So in terms of what has worked for us is, again, number one, education,
Education first.
understanding taxes, understanding credit, understanding how to invest, how money works and how dollars flow in the marketplace and things like that.
Yeah.
And another thing is having what we like to call a security fund or peace of mind fund. Many
Right.
people know of it as an emergency fund. And that's having a certain amount of months in fixed expenses saved.
Yeah.
And we've stayed true to that over the years, and that most certainly has helped us, especially as entrepreneurs in winter seasons where things have gotten tough.
Yeah.
And I would say that's one of the things that we've always universally agreed on.
Yes.
Another
Absolutely.
thing that we've also universally agreed on is having some kind of insurance,
I was just saying
health
so.
insurance and life insurance.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you have health insurance because, for example, you gave birth in a really nice hospital in Manhattan. And if we had to pay out of pocket 3 times, and there were just a lot of things that we needed health coverage for,
Yeah.
that it helped in a major way just having health coverage.
Yeah.
And also having life insurance policies,
Yeah. I was getting
which
to that.
unfortunately, just a lot of people in our and just a lot of our culture just not educated on the importance of having a life insurance policy.
Yes.
And you obviously specialize in that and service clients on helping them getting set up with life insurance policies.
Yeah.
But we're very big on just having that set up as a foundation. And once you got that, then you can start dabbling in some investments.
Yeah.
Keia has had her investments. I've had my investments. You don't have to share
You
investments
don't.
per se, and that's worked for us. I would
And you
say.
can
Yeah.
if you choose to. It's really up to
Yeah,
the couple
yeah.
or the person. But speaking about life insurance, one way to pass on wealth is to insure yourself because everyone is at different stages in their life. And especially if you have kids, no matter what stage you are, even if you're just beginning to create wealth for yourself, you should have a policy because God forbid something happens to you, you want to make sure that your family is not stuck with the burden of being able to bury you. Number one, I see a lot of GoFundMe's to bury someone, and it's sad because it really means that they didn't prepare for the inevitable, which is death. We are all going to graduate from this earth and ain't none of us getting out here alive. So it is what it is. And so this is something that we should all prepare for regardless to make sure that we could at least be buried. And also from an income standpoint, if you pass away, your family loses out on that income for the rest of their life. So imagine your wife and your kids, and I'll speak to the men especially because you want your wife to be able to choose someone, and I'm not saying that they're going to remarry for money or anything like that, but what I'm saying is you never want to leave your wife in a position where she has to be at the mercy of figuring it out and having to marry someone for financial stability instead of being able to choose for love, let's just say. And why I say that is because if a woman is left with kids, it's tough. It's tough out there not being able to have that extra support. And so I'm not saying that women go to men for a financial plan. That's not what I'm saying. But when it comes to looking out for your kids, you will do almost anything to make sure that they're okay. And you don't want to leave your family in that position. And I'll talk to the wives as well. Childcare and all of that, these are expenses. You guys may have a home, and it doesn't matter if it's the male or the man, the male or the female. At the end of the day, it's going to be a hit financially. That's what it is. If you guys have a mortgage, you guys are a 2-income family, getting that slashed is, it'll just be a tough road ahead, just figuring that out. And yeah, you may be resourceful and all of these things, but it's just making sure that your family is good. It is a responsibility you have as a father, as a husband, as a wife. It's just important.
Yeah.
Now, the way we use life insurance, use it for the living benefits. So yes, we're thinking about death, but we're really thinking about how we can use it while we're alive and accelerate our wealth, accelerate our investments. And maybe that's something we could talk about at another time.
For sure.
This is something that I teach clients as well, just strategizing and being able to grow their wealth exponentially.
Yeah.
And it's just understanding that the concept to be able to do that.
Most certainly.
But just at the basic level, if we're talking foundational, get a policy, because your family will be better off for it.
Yeah. While we're also on the topic of money, I really wanted us to just keep it real with the people on what it looks like today for us, for example, because I think when I first got started in a relationship with you, I adopted more of a 50-50 mentality.
Yes.
In my mind, I'm like, if she's making money and I'm making money, then we just split the bills.
Yeah.
And what I find, or what I found over the years, is that that just didn't work very well for us. And we're not here to say that you should or shouldn't take that approach. We just want to share what has ultimately worked for us.
Yeah.
So when we were building our businesses 50-50, Keia, she contributed to a lot of the growth of that business. And there was a point in time where we did a lot of things, I would say 50-50, especially when we were more so 50-50 roles in business. But I feel that what happened over the years is when you take on that mentality, again, you're relinquishing your crown, and you can't expect for a woman to satisfy all of your needs and also satisfy the household needs, like paying the bills. Yes. Like, you can't expect for your woman to want to be intimate with you all the time, and she's always working, for example, and she's busting her ass 60, 70, 80 hours a week, and now you want intimacy, and now you want to have someone cook for you and clean for you, and it's just unreasonable to think in that way. And I had needs, but also had expectations on what you should do with our business.
Yeah.
And it did not work well at all. And I will tell you what did work and what has been working a lot better. And that's been me as a man taking full responsibility as the head of my household for the bills.
Yeah.
And we just go about it that way. You still take care of a lot of your own personal stuff, but when it comes to the bills for our household, when it comes to paying for dates, when it comes to going on vacations, when it comes to just anything that we need for our children, I just chose to take on that full responsibility. Now, that's not necessarily always going to be ideal for every relationship. Right. But for us, it was a much better situation because I feel that you were able to satisfy a lot of my needs once I started stepping it up a lot more and taking on more responsibility for our household expenses and things like that. Again, it just really depends on you, but I believe that if you truly want to be the head of your household, obviously the woman is like the neck, giving that support, giving that direction in a sense, but if you want to have the crown, you must assume responsibility, and responsibility is nothing more than your ability to respond. As a man, I have to get up and make sure that I'm getting after it every single day, and I'm on the hunt to make sure like we're good.
Yeah.
And of course, this is not a message to tell the woman that you can't be independent or you can't be the breadwinner. In some cases, that's a better situation.
Yeah.
But you have to find out what works for you. If the 50-50 hasn't been working too well, you may want to try another approach. And I'm in favor of men really stepping up to the plate and empowering themselves in that way, challenging themselves.
Yeah.
Don't just give in and want to give all the responsibility or a bunch of the responsibility to the woman, because I'm also a believer that many women aren't designed to work all the time. You're not wired that way.
And just our evolution of the roles that we've played over the years, it's never been, it's mostly women have been the nurturers and in the home and stuff. And like he was saying, it's not that, it's like our divine feminine, for example, is we just flourish in different ways. And so you can be independent. I'm an independent woman. I work for myself. I have my own business and stuff like that. But at the same time, I do believe we wouldn't mind being taken care of, to be
Yeah.
honest, if I would keep it 100.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do realize too, in this economy where we are,
Yeah.
there has to be some give and take depending on the couple, how much
Of
they
course.
make and all
Yeah.
of these things. However, like you said, as a man, it's good to challenge yourself. I have 3 boys, we have 3 boys, and I want them to challenge themselves. I never want them to just settle for where they are. I want them to keep growing and being able to take care of their family. But I also came from a family where my dad took care of us. Everyone grows up different, and some things are just more natural to them than others, depending on how you grew up too. So all of that comes into play when you're talking about 2 different people
Yeah.
and figuring out finances.
For sure.
But it's a lot to unpack, but I do believe that it's good when men can take care of their household and women can, like you say, support as well.
Yeah, most definitely. I'm in favor of women empowering themselves through having their own endeavors and ways to generate income, but I just find that a lot of women blossom in their divine femininity when they don't have the pressure of having to provide for a family. It is stressful. It is not easy being a man and being the head of your household. Heavy is the head that wears the crown.
That's true.
And when you have that responsibility, it's a lot. And for those of you brothers who are out there just doing your best to provide for your family, I just really want to encourage you to keep fighting the good fight, brother. It's worth it. And just make sure that you take time for your self-care. I feel like we don't give enough of the brothers props who are out there just figuring it out. And for you women who feel guilty about just maybe not working and having your husband hold it down, like just do your best to help support him on that journey. And don't feel shame or guilt for being a stay-at-home mom. Like, why would you want to subject yourself to working all the time and having to work?
I think if you're working and doing something you love,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah,
not
of
work
course.
then at
Absolutely,
that point. But if you're
absolutely.
doing something that you absolutely hate or you just don't want to be doing, then
Yeah,
it's
exactly, exactly. So for those of you women, like, yes, we are in a woman empowerment generation, which I think is beautiful. It's so amazing to see women empowering themselves, but understand that it's just as beautiful to be at home with your kids and to have that support, to have that masculine person in the household who's helping you out so that you can be there with your children. Your children, for their brains to properly develop, they require the nurturing of the parents. And if you're always working, this is how a lot of childhood trauma manifests itself, because you have so many children out there because of the way maternity leave is set up these days. Mothers are stripped from their kids like just way too early, and their kids are stuck with this neglect and abandonment, and they're not having their needs properly met. And unfortunately, it causes issues down the road because you have 2 overworked parents who are constantly busting their ass to make a living, and they're not catering to the child's needs, and this affects them later on in life. So I do think that it is powerful having that family dynamic. And for those of you who've given up on marriage or you feel like marriage is dead, I would say that my main intention, and we spoke about this earlier even with Trey, the main intention really for this podcast today was to let you guys know that marriage isn't necessarily dead and there is hope out there. But unfortunately, in this generation, a lot of people don't have stickability. They don't have longevity, and they're just willing to throw in the towel, and it's work.
It is a lot.
It's not easy, but it's worth it.
It's so worth it, though.
It's definitely worth it.
If you guys can get it right, it is so worth it. And you go through the ups and downs like anything, but the reward is so much greater than everything else. And that's what, and I want to just be clear, because there are people that are in relationships that are abusive and stuff like that. Not talking about that. That you need to get out of.
Of course.
What I'm saying is, if you have 2 people that are doing their best and trying and figuring it out, yes, you may go through some storms. Yes, you may go through some things, but it is worth it to stick it out. Your kids will be better for it. And not only that, because I feel like we have taught each other and learned so much about ourselves just being in a relationship. And Josh always says God definitely put me in his life to challenge him and I just come in with the crazy and he has to figure it out. But, and vice versa. I am definitely a better person and I understand myself better just with our interaction every single day. So when you could laugh about it, I think, even after everything, it's a beautiful journey and it's one I wouldn't trade for the world. And I'm so happy to just be doing it with you.
Yeah,
And
I would say the same.
I'm not going to get emotional on this camera. I'm not going to cry over here, but I'm truly grateful.
Yeah, likewise. And it's just been beautiful to help each other on this spiritual evolution and to help each other evolve and transform and also just heal. I've learned so much about myself from our marriage and our time together, and it's allowed me to grow in areas where I was lacking. I learned patience through our marriage, and
you have so much more patience.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. And I've learned things like patience. I've learned to extend compassion. I've learned to take full responsibility and step into my own sacred masculinity and all of these amazing things that I've learned through marriage. And I would say that's what it's about more than anything. It's really supporting each other on this spiritual evolution as two individual souls who come together and could possibly grow into becoming soulmates. I feel that twin flames even can become soulmates. And some people are fortunate to find their soulmate, but other people have to work on becoming whole. And when you two can become whole together, and I think that's when it truly becomes beautiful, and that's when it gets to the point where you can absolutely unite and change the world together.
I just think for our kids, just us figuring it out sooner because we're still pretty young. And we've been together for a long time, and I feel like with us figuring it out sooner rather than later, they're growing up in a home where they can see love and compassion and all of the things that I feel like in our younger years may have scarred them. You know what I mean? So it's like our growth at the stage where we are now and raising children, and to the parents that maybe are going through their evolution and maybe their kids have seen some things that they've dealt with together and all that, and it may have been traumatic for them, but I will definitely say that it's not too late to continue to grow and to learn and provide a space for them that is safe and a space where they can see you guys working on yourselves because they learn from us as well. So don't feel bad that maybe it was a little traumatic for them in the beginning, but just move forward and grow and do your best to teach them and explain to them how you are still growing as well. That
reminds me of the quote from, I think it was Frederick Douglass, if I'm not mistaken, where he says it's so much easier to raise strong children than it is to heal broken men or fix broken men. And I feel like we have a moral obligation in this generation to really do it right and to help our young kings blossom to their potential and to really not have to heal from us, not have to have any baggage per se. And I feel like I got to benefit from your parents in that way. I did not have a partner, fortunately, who had all of this baggage and trauma that was brought into the relationship. If anything, it was me healing from a lot of that and just cultivating the awareness around that. And that has ultimately helped now, I would say, in just having a better understanding of why it is that I do what I do. But I do feel like for us, we're Team Valentine, and we most certainly want the best for our children. And we want the best opportunity for them. And we know that they'll have a lot more of an advantage if they have those values instilled in them, if they see what a healthy relationship looks
Right.
like. It's okay if, for example, we get into arguments from time to time, but we don't stay there. We
Right.
forgive and we move on. And it's not something that we necessarily hide. We don't want our children thinking that it's all sunshine and rainbows and it's perfect. We want them to see that, hey, yes, our parents had disagreements and they got frustrated, but they forgive, they may have agreed to disagree, and they moved on.
Yes.
And to me, that's a much better approach.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I know their marriages won't be perfect either.
Of course.
So I think it's good that we're able to curate this experience for them. So when they do get into those relationships, they will have a understanding of what they should do or just how to figure it out together.
Yeah, for sure. And another dynamic that we didn't even mention is the fact that we homeschool our kids.
Yeah.
And
Oh my gosh.
when we're not homeschooling them, we're world schooling them.
Yes.
And that in itself can be a whole other episode.
Yes.
A whole other podcast.
The chronicles of the homeschool. Like, it could really be.
Yeah.
Like, that is a whole journey within itself.
Yeah, most definitely.
Lots of lessons learned.
And if there's any way that I can just give you guys a picture of what that looks like for us, honestly, the best ratio that worked out for us is the first 2 hours, I typically get the boys started with their homeschooling, and I'll get their day going. I'll make breakfast and all that stuff. I'll work out. I'll do my prayer and meditation and all that. But then from that, I'm basically going straight into homeschooling and everything. And then usually around 10 to 11 a.m.
is when I come in. My shift starts.
Yeah, her shift starts and she pretty much holds down the fort.
Yes.
But our kids are straight A students.
Yeah.
And I would say, honestly, it's been 90% because of your effort and your diligence and everything. So I'm very blessed in that sense. That also has been very challenging in so many different ways, but it's also been very rewarding.
It has.
Yeah,
it's been rewarding because we get to spend a lot of time
exactly
with them.
Exactly.
So we get to, I'm grateful that we have this experience because we could have been out working and all of these different things and missing so much of their development. So it's just been really nice to be able to see them in their authentic selves all day, and it's hilarious in our house, like jokes for days. But just getting to spend this time with them, I'm grateful for it because, like I said, it's the inevitable. We won't be here, but
of course,
at least they could say that they had all of these experiences with us.
Yeah, and I would say it was important for us to homeschool because we spent a lot of years just working. Like Keia mentioned, having the guilt of working all the time while she had kids, and we spent a lot of years just sacrificing.
Yeah.
So if there's one word that I would say best represents what we had to endure to make this work, has been sacrifice.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's nice now to be able to catch up for lost time by being able to pretty much homeschool our kids and teach them our ways and our values and teach them practical knowledge.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and it's been beautiful to be able to experience that. Now, as we wrap up with this podcast episode and we bring it in for a landing on basically the greatest lessons that you've learned along the way with marriage in general, when it comes to every dimension of life and how marriage applies to it, what would you say are some of your greatest lessons that you've learned along the way? And also maybe some tips that you can give to the audience.
Okay, so greatest lessons, I would say that we are constantly evolving as people. We are always learning, we are always growing, and there's always going to be something new, meaning there's always going to be some type of process that you go through every so often, especially if you're someone committed to growth. I feel like when those times do come, that you do your best to figure it out together or meet that person where they are. Because we were talking earlier about when I was with the kids and you were growing a lot further and a lot faster than I was. And it was like, it was a period where I think that, not to say that I had to catch up, but I was so involved in just that part of my life that I didn't spend a lot of time growing and evolving. And so I feel like when you do see your partner, even if they're not at the stage where you are or where you feel like they should be, just, I guess you could say, giving them grace and also being their biggest cheerleader. I think that if we turn away from judgment more and how we can assist that person in becoming a better version of themselves, obviously they have to be willing to go on that journey as well. But I do think that encouraging that person is always good, and that's one of the lessons that I've learned, to always be someone that is looking at your partner for the blessings that they bring to the relationship or the good things, and in the spaces where they lack, giving them grace and encouraging them. So I would say that would be one of the things that I've learned just from being in a relationship.
For sure. Are there any last tips that come to mind for those who are possibly starting out on their marriage journey, or maybe even considering marriage in the first place?
Yes. So before you get married, have many conversations about everything. So I find that a lot of couples don't talk about finances at all. It may have been seen as a taboo in their, like, growing up. Talk about everything, even if it's credit scores, all of those things. It's gathering as much information as you need to in order to have a handle on what it is to expect. That way, and you're never really ready. I don't know anyone who can say they're ready, because there's always something. But I think the more you have these conversations, get each other's opinions, understand where people stand with different things that are important to you, you have a better idea of if this is even someone you want to continue the journey with, or when times get tough, that you can actually look at them and still say, I am happy that I made this decision. So have many conversations. Don't leave anything. Sex, everything. Kids, the amount of kids you want to have, if you want to have kids, if you don't want to have kids, how many times you want to have sex a week.
Yeah.
Like, it's funny to think about it, but at the same time, it's so necessary. I know we had a friend that his girlfriend did not want to have kids at all. He knew this about her, but I think he felt like she would change over time. And if someone is telling you that this is what they want, just understand that you may think they may change for love or whatever the case may be, but they may not. So do you even want to go along that journey knowing that's something that's important to you, and having kids is important to him? So not expecting later down the road, because she didn't change, and things happen and people split apart, but just understanding that it's good to have those conversations.
Yeah, most definitely. I would say that one of the things that I've learned over the years, and especially doing counseling, sometimes I get clients who reach out for just coaching sessions specifically on marriage or relationships. And I've had clients who've been together for over 30 years who've come to me for coaching. And one of the things that I can genuinely say is the couples that have been together for 30, 40 plus years, including your parents, no matter what they went through, they may have gone through hell together, and they may have gone through so many different obstacles and so many different heartbreaks, but they all seem to have gotten to a place where they don't regret sticking it out with each other.
Yeah.
They're all happy when it's all said and done that they did stick it out, despite all of the different things that they went through with their partner. And for me, that's very encouraging, because I think no matter how difficult things may seem, no matter how difficult things may get, I remember I had this epiphany one time, and that epiphany was, if I did leave our marriage, there's a really good possibility that I can regret it. But if I stayed with the mother of my children, I really doubted that I would regret it when it was all said and done, because it's the mother of my children. And if all I got out of that was the ability to have a good family, obviously that would come with proper communication and not being toxic and all those things.
Exactly.
But I did not feel in my heart of hearts that I would regret sticking it out with you till the end of time. But I would possibly regret leaving and you end up being happier elsewhere with someone else, or vice versa. So I would say that it's worth sticking it out, and you have to really make that decision for yourself whether or not it's worth sticking out, because like you said, it can be an abusive relationship, and that's a different scenario. So be very wise with how you go about your selection process. Like you just said, you have to be careful and ask a lot of questions, because once you pull the trigger on marriage, it just becomes so much more complicated getting out of it than even getting into it. Outside of that, if there's any other lessons or tips that I would say that we could pass on just based off of what we've learned together. Number one, learn your partner's love language, because you may very well feel like you're loving someone, but you're not loving them the way they need to be loved or the way they want to be loved.
It's true.
So for me, for example, when you were pregnant, I would go and bring you food every single day. I would go out and I'd bring you food and I'd provide, and I'm thinking that's enough, but you needed more affection. You needed that time, that quality time, that help, that attention, all of that. And I just did not have the capacity during that time to be able to give you that. And that entire time was thinking that I knew how to properly love you, and in reality, I was just lost.
And I would just say, I remember when you came to me and you told me, I need more intimacy, I want romance and all of these things. And I'm grateful that I have a partner that would verbalize that, because I do feel like a lot of people, they just hold in how they feel and what they need. So sometimes their partner doesn't even know. And I remember not being able to exactly figure out, okay, what does that mean? But over time, we started to figure it out. So sometimes you may verbalize it, and sometimes the person may not understand exactly how to go about that right away. But I do think it's important to continue to verbalize it and continue to try and figure out how you can meet each other's needs.
For sure.
And I remember you saying that, and like now thinking about it, it's interesting, because it took some time for us to finally get to that point of like romance and all of that stuff. After all of that, it took years actually from that day, and if we had given up, we wouldn't be in the space where we are today. But,
most definitely. And I feel like as people, our needs change over time.
For sure.
Understand that, especially for us men, our testosterone levels decrease over time, and that actually affects your journey through manhood. It affects your masculinity. It affects your needs in a sense. You may very well want acts of service for 10 years, and then now all of a sudden you want touch.
Physical touch,
Or you may want gifts, but now you want quality time. So women also change as well. Our hormones change, and so much happens inside of us that ultimately change us as people. So constantly finding out what your partner's needs are and taking the responsibility, although you're not responsible for someone else's happiness, but taking on the responsibility to at least try to help them meet their needs. As a holistic life coach, one of the things that I've been so fascinated with over the years is understanding basic human needs psychology. And you'd be amazed by how your partner can be head over heels for you if you just figure out a way to meet their needs. If your partner has a need for certainty and security and you can figure that out, the relationship is going to be better. If you have a need for variety or significance and you can give your partner that attention and take them on dates and do these things. But you have to study your partner, you have to ask questions, and you have to bring enough consciousness to the relationship. If you do not give time to nurture that relationship, just like anything else, it's going to start to decay. If you don't give time to your body, will eventually start to break down. If you don't give time to your parenting, it will eventually show up later on in your children's life. And it's the same with your relationship. A lot of people don't have thriving relationships because they're simply giving time to things that are not their relationship. They're majoring in the minors. They're putting all their time and focus into running up their bag, for example, and building wealth. And they don't realize that a lot of the wealth is your family. A lot of the wealth that you develop is your tribe. I look at wealth as how adequately equipped someone is for survival. That's my personal definition. I know you have yours.
Yeah.
And when it comes to your relationship with your partner, isn't it true that you're going to be a lot better off if you have a partner that is team you and can help you and support you?
Absolutely.
100%. So that's what it's about. And studies have shown that people who are married, even if they just hold hands, they live so much longer than couples who don't. So if there's another tip I would say is just be as affectionate towards each other as possible.
That's a good one. Be kind to each other. Be
Yeah.
affectionate. So one tip I'd like to add is go to bed with your partner.
Yeah.
Lately, I have been just mom time, alone time, because I'm with the kids homeschooling, and I've been using the nights as me time. And Josh has been like, could you come to bed?
Yeah.
That's the tip I would give,
Yeah.
because it is important if you guys can go to sleep together. I know you sent me an article about couples that sleep together, but going to bed together it provides more intimacy than if you're going to bed at different times.
Of course.
It's interesting, these things may seem so minor, but they end up so major, because over time of constantly not sleeping together and not being in bed together, it erodes that intimacy.
Yeah.
That's what I am learning currently. I would throw that tip in there.
Yeah, and the last thing that I'll say is don't be so quick to point the finger at your partner if they make a mistake.
Yeah.
And they do something that maybe is against what you stand for as a married person and against your values. You have to remember that people will do anything in their power to meet their basic human needs, even if it's against everything that they stand for. You see this all the time. You see it with local pastors, you see it with political figures and celebrities and just about anybody. People absolutely have to figure out ways to meet their needs. So again, rather than pointing the finger saying that someone did wrong or they're doing wrong, how about you see how you can genuinely help them on their journey with meeting their needs? And what I find is the couples that struggle the most are just couples that have not figured out a way to help each other meet each other's needs. And if you can get that right, you can have a thriving marriage. And do your best to switch it up, spice it up, get a little variety in there.
Yeah.
You can never go wrong. Just putting on something sexy. Ladies, don't get comfortable. Don't put on the Grammy panties.
Listen.
Yeah. Yeah, but you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Not me. I don't have granny panties.
Yeah, no, she definitely doesn't, and I'm happy. I am happy about that. but just like, and fellas too. Fellas, trim yourself up, keep yourself clean, keep yourself in shape. Don't just let yourself go. And it's funny because
and never stop whining and dining your lady.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Because guys do get comfortable too. It's
take
not
at
just
least
women.
1 hour out of the week for a date if possible.
Yeah, that's a
at
good
least one day out of the week where you go. It doesn't have to be anything expensive. It can be a walk in the park with some ice cream. But at least one day out of the week where you take your partner on a date. This will at least keep you guys together, and you have to schedule it in. You have to schedule it in. It's absolutely important. Just like you schedule in work meetings, you have to schedule in that time with your significant other. And if you do that, you'll be a lot more likely to have the passion. You just got to bring more awareness and attention and TLC to the relationship, and it just goes a long way. It's funny, we were mentioning on our break just how when you go to couples counseling, we tried all different kinds of couples counseling, and one of the couples counseling was going to a pastor for couples counseling. But we always recommend also a professional, right? Because not to say that they're not a professional, but they're probably not going to tell you the thing with the granny panties, right? Like, or just switching it up, spicing it up. You have to do that to keep the relationship alive. You need that polarity to create that passion in the relationship. But all in all, I really appreciate your time. It was a great podcast episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah, I hope
Any
you
last
guys
words
did.
for the audience?
No, I think we covered pretty much everything that we wanted to cover today. Just keep at it, keep fighting the good fight, because marriage may not be easy, but it is so rewarding in so many different ways.
Absolutely. And marriage is most certainly not dead, folks. It is still alive and well. And it's just a lot of people don't have that fight bone anymore. And we need more people just really doing their best to just stick it out and ride it out and set the example of what it could be like, because from our personal experience, it has been super valuable for us, and it's just created a beautiful life for ourselves. So for those of you who are currently in a marriage and you're doing your best to figure it out, listen, it is worth it. If you can get it right, it is absolutely worth it. And we want to encourage you to just keep fighting the good fight, and just encourage you to just stick it out and help each other heal and transform and evolve together. And thank you so much. It was incredible. And we will most certainly be having a lot more episodes together to cover a lot more topics on everything from marriage to parenting and business and wealth building and all that good stuff. So hope you guys enjoyed this podcast episode. And once again, the one and only Mrs. Keia Valentine graced us with her presence today, and hopefully we can get you back in the near future.
Yeah,
thanks, babe.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Thanks again for tuning into this episode. It would mean the world to me if you can follow, subscribe, share, or even leave a review. I look forward to putting out more content, and we'll see you on another episode.